at right now is a very, very perplexing crime scene. And detectives right now are looking at this as a possible murder, and but we don't know for sure. So again, because of the complexity, the complex crime scene, we can't say for sure what we have.
Breaking news this morning in the murder of pregnant teen Savannah Soto. Police making 2 arrests in connection with her death. And part of the Epstein list has been released. And we have the latest on the high-profile names in those documents. Plus, the 3rd man charged in connection to Crystal Rogers' murder in court today asking for bond. It's all coming up next, plus more right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you, friends, and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and if you're new to the show, well, welcome. I think you'll find it a lot like the actual opening statements at trial. That's how this show was designed, to give you all the information you need to get you primed and ready to go for the big cases that we're covering on Court TV Live that are at trial, and all the major cases that are making headlines and have people talking in the world of true crime. I like to think of the show as kind of coffee and court. We get you all warmed up and ready for the day ahead. So right now, it's time for you to grab a cup of coffee because it's time for my opening statement. Gun ownership in America is a constitutional right that carries with it tremendous responsibility. In the criminal case against Oxford, Michigan school shooter's parents, the facts alleged show anything but responsible behavior. January 23rd is the date set for the trial of James and Jennifer Crumbley. And the court has allowed their cases to be severed. And we don't know who the state will choose to try first. But either way, the case of involuntary manslaughter and 4 counts of it for each of those precious students who were murdered is being brought against both James and Jennifer Crumbley. Now, the state of Michigan is forcing responsibility on them for the heinous actions of their son, Ethan. And I say, bravo, bravo. I applaud the Oakland County prosecutor for holding them legally accountable as well on the facts that those investigators uncovered. Like the fact that police say dad bought the gun for the son, lied on the form at the gun shop, said the gun was for him, but then gave it to his disturbed and dangerous 15-year-old, who then posed with his new present on social media. Police say when Ethan Crumbley was searching for ammunition, when he should have been paying attention in class and the teacher caught him, his mother told him that she wasn't mad at him and to not get caught next time. And how about the morning of the shooting, when their son creates that sinister drawing of a shooting and writes how he needs help because the thoughts won't stop? Prosecutors say his parents then refused to take him home, insisting that he stay in school with his backpack that they didn't bother to check, even though police say they kept the firearm unsecured in their home. Throw the book at them. That is what I say. I am sick and tired of these school shooters, and I am so glad that the Oakland County prosecutor is taking action to hold everybody that the state believes had a part in it responsible. It seems to me that the Crumbleys will learn about responsible gun ownership the hard way. As my friends, we never forget those 4 beautiful, innocent children who were killed. Madison Baldwin, Tate Meyer, Justin Schilling, and Hannah St. Juliana. That's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, I want to give you what's on your daily docket.
Oh, can't talk because he got in trouble because he got caught. It's like, give me a break. Start owning up to what you're doing, and then try to fix the problem, like we keep telling you. All
right, friends, here's a look at some of the cases we're following for you today on Court TV Live. In Florida, Tracy Farrader's due in court at 8:30 a.m. for a status hearing. And also in Florida, we've got a status conference set for 9 a.m. for Patricia Ripley. If that name sounds familiar to you, she's the mother who's accused of pushing her autistic son into a canal to drown him. And in Kentucky, the third alleged co-conspirator in Crystal Rogers' death, Steve Lawson, is set to have a bond hearing today at 2:30 p.m. And it should be interesting because he said he wants to cooperate. We'll get to all of that. But first, we want to turn to the major, big breaking news we've been waiting for. It seems for years and certainly for all of this week as the list of Jeffrey Epstein's associates has finally been released. For more on that, let's head out to Montana now, where we find Scripps News correspondent Maritza Giorgio with the latest for us. Maritza, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Julie. You know, a couple of things to make clear here. There has been so much speculation about a list of people associated with Epstein that will come out that might be incriminating. Well, I want to be clear, there's not really just a list of names, and just because a name is mentioned in this huge document dump doesn't mean there's anything incriminating against them. But we did see about 40 documents released, almost 1,000 pages yesterday that shed some new light about the allegations against Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, his longtime co-conspirator. But much of it has already been previously reported, and that's honestly part of why the judge ordered these to be unsealed. But there are hundreds more documents to be released. The documents I went through last night included many reminders that Epstein surrounded himself with very high-profile, wealthy, powerful people. We are not going to mention every single name in this document dump, but many instances where we see the names we have already seen associated with Epstein. Think Prince Andrew. One deposition goes over specifics of an alleged encounter with him and a puppet, for instance. Two former presidents named in this, former President Bill Clinton's name, also former President Donald Trump, in a story about stopping in Atlantic City on a plane ride to New York. With former President Clinton, the reason we see so many mentions of his name is because Virginia Giuffre's lawyers wanted to depose Clinton as part of her defamation lawsuit, saying he was a key person who could provide information about his close relationship with the defendant and Mr. Epstein. Now, she didn't make any allegations of wrongdoing against Clinton or Trump, and at least two people asked their names to be redacted from this. They are for now, but that could be reversed later this month. And as we know, Ghislaine Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence right now for sex trafficking. She is appealing to have that case dismissed. But keep in mind, whenever news involving Epstein and Maxwell comes out, it is very hard on the victims. I have spoken to many victims and their attorneys, but this all speaks to the public's fascination with this case and the public wanting to know more about how this could have happened. Julie?
I'm so glad you said that about the victims, Maritza. You're so right. That's really what this is all about. And hopefully everyone who was wronged can get through it and get the help that they need to continue with their lives. Maritza Giorgio, always great to see you. Thank you so much for being live for us this morning. Take good care. I want to bring in now our guest to discuss this further. He is a trial attorney. He practices both criminal law, civil law. He's also a law professor at the great Temple University School of Law. And he's no stranger to high-profile cases. Mr. Dante Mills is joining us this morning. Good morning, Dante. Happy New Year to you. Can I start, please? Oh, thank you so much, friend. Can I start, please, with just getting your, I guess, most important thoughts on this? I loved what Maritza said a moment ago about how, you know, we don't want to think anybody is guilty by association here. That's not how America runs. What are you thinking this morning? What do you think is important for the public to know as we continue to learn about more of these associates of Jeffrey Epstein's?
There's a couple of points that are very important, Juliana. One is I truly believe in our legal system, but our system provides innocence until proven guilty. These names and some of these names that are listed are going to be new to us, but they're not new to the prosecutors and the district attorneys that are involved in this case. So you have to believe that they went through all of this evidence, all of these names before, and if there was illegal activity that they could prove, they would have brought charges. But now that this list is public and this information is public, it's put into the court of public opinion, where you don't need to be proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. People can make assumptions. And I don't know if that's fair to the people that are listed in this list. Some of them who did not do anything illegal, but are going to be deemed guilty by association, like you just said. They may lose endorsements. They may lose deals because they rode in a plane that Epstein owned, even though they didn't participate in any illegal activity. So I think we need to be careful when we go through this list and make those associations. People are going to say, well, Bill Clinton, for example, was listed in there multiple times, and I know that means he was up to something. Well, actually, you don't know that because it could be a very normal reason why he was taking a plane from one place to another. So we have to be careful blaming people because the blowback, these lies, people's lives could be affected, their livelihood can be affected without them being proven guilty of anything. The second part to this, and is very important, are the victims. Like you just said, what we want to make sure and what we really want to get out of this is how they were courted, how these young women, these young girls were courted by Epstein and his associates. He did things like sent flowers to high school girls when they had events and things like that. I think that needs to be the focus. I think principals and parents need to look at how these girls were courted to make sure that this doesn't happen again and that we're protecting our children. That's one thing that we can take from all this information that's coming out, the ways that they used these girls to court one another and ways that we can prevent this from happening moving forward.
You're right, Dante. You're right. We all have a responsibility for our children in society. We've got to protect them and pay attention to what seems like warning signs. Better to have it investigated and to say something than to just let it go by and wonder. I have to ask you too, Dante, tell me, looking at it from the perspective of those people that have been named here, the famous names, surely it's probably very upsetting just to be discussed and to have people speculating, as you said, speculating as if there's been wrongdoing done. Some of the big names, David Copperfield's names mentioned, the famous hairdresser Frederick Fekkai, who sells all those hair products, Michael Jackson. You know, let's say, for instance, you're representing David Copperfield, you know, and he knows his name's coming out and all this. What advice do you give him as his lawyer?
So with a lot of my high-profile clients, what I tell them is you don't want to feed the beast, right? Because people are going to speculate, they're going to make assumptions, and if you get into defense mode and jump in, like, for example, Attorney Alan Dershowitz seems to be doing, he said he wants the whole story out. His name was mentioned, but it raises more questions, like, why are you so adamant to talk about this and to have a back and forth? So I would recommend to my clients in this situation not to respond, to understand that this information has been vetted by district attorneys and prosecutors. And if they don't see anything that you've done wrong, don't add anything to the story and allow people to kind of shift the focus and move on to what the priority should be, which is the young girl. So I would recommend to my clients in a situation not to go on, a public opinion tour talking about how they're not related to him or not linked to him, because all that's going to do is bring more speculation and raise more questions.
Great advice, Dante. Thank you for that. We want to turn now to this morning's big hearing for defendant Patricia Ripley. She's the 47-year-old mother who's accused of first-degree murder after police say she pushed her 9-year-old son, who had autism, into a canal in order to drown him back in 2020. Now, her first attempt was caught on surveillance video. Police say it was obtained exclusively by Univision. And take a look at this. You can see her. Look at that. Pushing her boy into the water and then running. Look at it again. And seconds later, a nearby resident gets in the water, saves Alejandro's life. But hours later, Ripley reported her son missing, alleging that he had been kidnapped. She told police that 2 black men had ambushed her car, robbed her, and taken Alejandro. Investigators say the truth is, an hour after the first attempt, Ripley drowned Alejandro in another canal. And today, she's due in court at 9 a.m. for a status hearing in her case. And we're taking you there live as soon as this hearing begins for this sickening case. We have to hit a break right now, but when we come back here on opening statements, we're going to be bringing in our power panel as we're breaking down this shocking video. Watch this, of a judge being attacked in her courtroom in Nevada. Look, there it is. My goodness. We'll have the details on that and the very latest on this morning's breaking news as a father and son have been arrested for the death of pregnant teen Savannah Soto.
Coming soon to Court TV.
These murders have shaken our community.
Why did you do it? The doomsday prophet, Chad Daybell.
Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty against him.
A social media sensation, now a suspected killer.
Karen Reed, she's accused of murder.
She says she's the victim of a police cover-up.
It's scary just knowing that he was so close.
The high-stakes trials you don't want to miss. Coming soon, only on Court TV.
Welcome back, and now to what is trending in true crime. Want to show you this defendant, Delone Redden, at a hearing Wednesday morning in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is the before image you're seeing on video of him talking to the judge, kind of saying his piece before the judge was getting ready to impose his sentence. Charged with aggravated battery with substantial bodily harm. But watch what happens when the judge, Judge Mary Holthus, tells Redden that she is denying his request for probation.
I appreciate that, but I think it's time that he gets a taste of something else because I just can't with that history. In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court...
My goodness, this guy you see there leaping over the bench, tackling Her Honor. He could be heard repeatedly punching the judge, yelling expletives. All while courtroom security attempted to restrain him. They eventually did, and according to the Las Vegas District Court, the Honorable Judge Holthus suffered some injuries from this incident. Her condition is being monitored this morning. This guy, of course, is charged with that assault on the protected person, Her Honor, Judge Mary Holthus. He's going to be back in court this morning. I want to know why this guy was out on bond when he had a very violent criminal history. 3 prior felonies, a long history of assaultive behavior for those felonies, robberies, another assault on a member of a protected class. That means someone like a judge, prosecutor, police officer. History of domestic violence. That's what this instant case was about. And the charges pleaded down. It was initially aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and it was being reduced to a battery. How does this happen? Let me bring in our guests, get their reactions. Criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Michael J. Brown is with us. Also still with us, trial attorney and law professor at Temple University School of Law, Dante Mills. And joining us, retired NYPD Deputy Inspector and the author of the book, Once a Cop, Corey Pegues. Great to have you all this morning as our power panel. How does this happen? Michael J. Brown, would you start us off, please?
Good morning, Julie. Well, listen, this is real life. This is, we see a lot of things on television and life imitating art, but this is real life. And courtrooms can be dangerous places because you're dealing with some people who are extremely violent. And although it's a rare occurrence, and the staff, at least in our county here in Suffolk County, New York, they do a tremendous job. These things do happen. And luckily, they were able to subdue this individual before he caused any real harm.
Right. I'm sure you all have seen many crazy things in your years of service in the criminal court system, but have you ever seen anything like this? Dante Mills, let me go to you next, please.
Thankfully, no. But I can tell you this, Julie, as Michael Brown said, your clients, if you're a criminal defense attorney, they've been charged with crimes. Some of them actually committed those crimes and are dangerous people. So there's been times where I'm sitting next to someone, or there's behind me, and you're concerned. But you have to rely on the officers in the room to protect you, to protect the judge. I do believe that in this situation, the fact that he was able to make it to the judge and in fact hurt her. From the report, she had to go to the hospital. That's something that should never be allowed to happen. I know the court staff was paying attention, but the fact that he made it up there is very concerning. But when you're sitting there in that courtroom dealing with people who are charged with crimes, and some of them committed those crimes, it's a dangerous situation. you have to be aware. I know when I'm sitting next to my clients, I'm keeping focus, and I'm keeping that in mind, and thankfully it's never happened to me, but this is a very bizarre occurrence.
Right, thank goodness for that, Dante. Corey Pegues, tapping into your years of service in law enforcement and knowing that there are people whose jobs in that courtroom are to make sure that order is maintained, that no one is assaulted. I'm wondering if anybody's going to get called on the carpet today or sometime later this week for perhaps not stopping this, or maybe stopping it in time before the judge was actually hit. What do you think about this, please, Corey?
Well, Happy New Year to all of you, first of all. The second thing, so I looked at this two ways. I looked at this as maybe, and no take on the judge. You know, she made a comment right before she was going into her sentences. Maybe she should have just did the sentence, whatever the sentence was, without making it. It looks like the comment irked him, but she's not at fault for what happened. The second thing, I look at this from a police commander standpoint. I have on my leadership hat. There's no way, shape, or form. When you look at the video, you can see the court officer standing behind the lawyer. Why in the world is the court officer standing behind a lawyer and not standing next to the defendant? So there was a lapse in security, in my estimation. You already know the violent history of this gentleman. The judge is the only person in the room that knows that she's getting ready to put him in prison. So I don't know if she can, gives that information and said, listen, I need to make sure that the bailiff or the court officer is standing right next to the defendant, but there was a serious lack in judgment of the security, for that matter. For this guy to jump up there like Superman and nobody to grab him, and when I'm saying nobody, a court officer. We watch this on court TV every single day, and you'll see, you look at the, you look how the court officers are usually standing by the defendant. When you look at this, you see the defendant, the lawyer, and then the court officer. And between them were chairs and desks. It should have never happened.
It's such an important observation you made. Thank you so much for that, Corey. Switching gears a little bit now, this story is also trending in true crime. A key witness took the stand Wednesday. Maybe you saw this, friends, in the young Thug RICO trial that we're broadcasting here on Court TV. Here he is. This is Trontavious Stevens. He's a former co-defendant and admitted co-founder of the alleged criminal enterprise Young Slime Life. And Stevens struck up a plea deal with prosecutors in Atlanta in exchange for his testimony. He's being asked to go into detail about his past gang involvement and history with YSL, and then he gets a deal with his own case. And part of the deal is to identify other members in the courtroom. Let's take a listen to how some of it went.
How long have you known him?
Of course, before I went to prison.
I'm sorry.
I said before I went to prison, but like probably 3 years before that.
And how long have you known Shannon?
I met Shannon like probably 2014, 2013. Probably 2014, 2013.
2014 or 2013?
Yeah.
And what about Diamante?
I actually went to elementary school with him.
Okay, and if you saw the whole thing, it was like pulling teeth to get this guy to say anything. I mean, it was painful. And at some points, humorous maybe to a degree because it was so frustratingly bad. And we know these charges are very serious, and also what can happen to someone if they turn state's evidence can be serious. Corey Pegues, let me start with you on this, please. We hear the phrase, snitches get stitches. Should this guy be in fear for his life here?
Absolutely. If what we are hearing, allegedly, the crimes that have been committed, and just know the lay of the land with gangs, drugs, narcotics, and gang, this is a very, very, very violent gang set. So yes, he does have some concern. You can see it just with his testimony, just the way they was looking at him while he was testifying. I don't know if they're going to put him in a witness protection program, but he probably are going to have some issues when he get home, if in fact there's a conviction. And maybe even if not. because the code of the streets is you stay silent. You talk, something happens to you.
Right. Dante Mills, let me go to you next, please. We know there were numerous defendants initially charged, I believe 28, if my memory serves me correctly, and it's like they've dropped like flies because so many deals struck up. Tell me, if you're representing somebody who got a deal, but there's no component to it that requires testimony on behalf of the government. They can just kind of go on their way. What advice do you give them when they go to, whether it's jail, prison, or just back out in society?
To just go on their way. Because when you have cases with multiple defendants, generally it happens that someone is going to be the first one in, and they're going to implicate other people because they're going to try and get themselves out of trouble. And a lot of times, even if you take a plea deal and you do not cooperate, there's an assumption that you did. And why did he get that good of a deal? If I'm a good lawyer and I get my client a good deal, other people may assume he cooperated because the deal was so good. So I just make it clear to them that there's not going to be obviously any evidence, any testimony that has to happen. And you just go about your business and stop doing what you were doing to get yourself in trouble, but not mention it because you could put yourself in danger. Now, the components to this is if you are cooperating and you're testifying, you do have to face, or the defendants have the right to face their accuser. So you have to show up in court if you're going to cooperate and give this testimony live, and that's when it gets real. They make the deal, but then when they have to show up in court and look at the person that they're cooperating against, it gets very tough to do that, and I think that's what you're seeing here.
You're exactly right, Dante. You could cut the tension with a knife. Michael J. Brown, you've served as a prosecutor, tapping into those experiences you had before going into the private sector now and doing criminal defense work. I'm sure you feel for that prosecutor and how, you make the deal, everything's crystal clear, and then when push comes to shove, it's awful. Describe for us what that's like to be in the prosecutor's shoes and suffer that embarrassment.
Yeah, well, Julie, it's difficult because what you do is you have a deal cut with these cooperating witnesses or defendants, and you prepare them numerous times. You explain cross-examination. You explain what you're going to ask on direct. You discuss the strategy, and then you put them on the stand, and the next thing you know is they get cold feet. There's very little you can do at that point. They're brought in to add to your case, and that's the hope, is that they really is the nail in the coffin. But you do the best you can and you move on to the next witnesses.
Right. Yeah, you just, you play the hand you're dealt, and my goodness, I feel for those prosecutors. It is not an easy position to be in, as we all know. Boy, great discussion. We got to leave it here for now. Michael J. Brown and Corey Pegues, you're coming with us as we continue in the show. Dante Mills, we've got to say goodbye. A big thank you to you for everything this morning. We'll see you soon. When we come back after this break, our investigators are weighing in on the Savannah Soto case. Did you hear? We've got 2 arrests now. We're going to talk about the allegations made against this father-son duo, plus the latest on the Crystal Rogers murder case. This one has puzzled the true crime community for years, and now the 3rd alleged co-conspirator is heading to court today, and he wants bond. We'll talk about it next.
We are moving closer to trial in the case against doomsday prophet Chad Daybell.
Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty against him.
Investigators have recovered human remains at Chad Daybell's residence.
There's no way, Morgan. I could never come up with this.
His wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, has already been convicted.
Now, will her husband end up with the same fate?
It's just so hard to know where the truth ends.
It's the doomsday prophet, Chad Daybell, on trial.
Welcome back. Now to the big breaking news out of Texas that we continue following. 2 arrests have been made for the murders of pregnant teenager Savannah Soto and her boyfriend. The San Antonio Police Department announcing early this morning that 19-year-old Christopher Preciado and his father, Ramon Preciado, have been arrested for the murders of Savannah Soto and her boyfriend, Matthew Guerra. Now, police believe that Christopher, the son, is the one who did the murders. That's what they believe, and they believe his father just helped him after the fact moving the bodies. So their charges are different. different. Son charged with murder, dad charged with abuse of a corpse. Now, Savannah Soto was last seen in mid-December, one day before she was scheduled to be induced. She and her boyfriend's remains were found days later inside of his Kia Optima. We've been looking at that video since then. It's been quite puzzling. Police are saying this morning that they believe the murders are the result of a drug deal that turned deadly. I have two great guests on the program to help me break this all down. Still with me, retired NYPD Deputy Inspector and the author of the book, Once a Cop, Corey Pegues. And want to welcome in retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffendorfer. Great to see you both this morning. Thank you for being here. Oh boy. There has been some speculation that this might have been a drug deal that went unexpectedly awry and turned fatal. Jennifer, I know you've been following this very, very closely. I enjoy following you on Twitter or X always, but you know, you've been analyzing this one. Tell me, was this what you expected investigators to find here? Why or why not, please?
Yes, I expected it to have to do with a drug deal gone bad. I think I said that very early, likely gang related in terms of the players involved. Clearly, when we hear the words, you know, a botched drug deal gone bad, what does that mean? What that means is that somebody wasn't living up to their end of the bargain. Either the amount of drugs being sold was off or the money that was being brought was off. One of those two things. And this isn't just like purchasing, you know, vitamins from your, you know, your girlfriend next door. This turns deadly and can turn deadly. First of all, it was late at night. I would believe, even though we'll never know, but likely Mr. Preciado was likely under the influence. So you have people who are under the influence dealing with one another. And then you also have that street cred, you know, the disrespect that when this drug deal went wrong, went down and turned deadly.
Right, Jennifer, great points. I have a clip I want to play, and Corey, I'm coming to you next after this, please. This is a clip of Savannah Soto's mother, who joined closing arguments with Vinnie Politan last night, and she did the interview with Vinnie before the announcement of the arrest, so that came later. But here in this clip, she's talking about Savannah's relationship with her boyfriend, Matthew Guerra, and of course, many of us are wondering, did anybody know that this was going on, that he was into these dealings, apparently? Let's watch.
They had a kind of like a little rough relationship in the beginning. She said it was getting better. They were both looking for the baby. I mean, we had a baby shower for her. They were there, you know, and opening the gifts, you know, all excited, playing games. You know, it was like any normal couple. I mean, about his, you know, private, I don't really know anything about him, but I mean, my daughter was happy with him.
She said she didn't really know anything about him, so who knows the extent of what she knew or didn't know about these activities. Corey Pegues, you have such unique experience because you retired from the NYPD after many years of service at such a high rank, and your story I have mad respect for. When you were young, and you talk openly about this, you talk about it in your book. When you were young, before you went into the military and became a police officer, you were on the streets dealing drugs, and so you have a really interesting perspective of the dangers of it. And for anybody who might think, oh, I can dabble in this or be associated with someone dabbling in it or have a family member associated with it, these risks of fatal incidents are very, very real. Are they not? Would you speak to that, please, Corey?
Oh, it's very real. Being in the street is either dead or in jail. So, you know, I call an old drug dealer. If you got more than 5 years, then you're like ancient. Usually, if you get in 2 to 3 years out there selling drugs, you made a little money, you better escape. Because now, cops are just using this thing right here. They're solving crimes very quickly. Let me just touch on one of the things the mother said. I was uncomfortable with her saying there was a normal relationship. Well, I don't know what's normal with her daughter being in this relationship with this known drug dealer. I think they had a domestic violence history, if I'm not mistaken. And you have to know what your children are doing. I remember when my 2 older daughters were teenagers and they wanted locks on the bedroom door. And I was like, You're not paying no rent. What do you mean locks on the door? You know, you can't, no bedrooms have locks on them. And I used to put money in the dresser so they knew that I was going through their dresser drawer or I was going through their book bag. Like, you have to know what your children are doing. So I don't think it's anything normal with somebody dealing with somebody who has a violent past and also assaulted the child at one time.
I love that. I love what you said there. And let's keep going on this point. I mean, look, I mean, this is so sad that these young people lost their lives, that unborn baby, you know, killed. Also, I'm sure we could expect charges coming with respect to the baby that hadn't been born yet. But tell me, what can parents do? If somebody's watching this program this morning, we know that drug use, drug dealing, you know, sadly, it's very common. We have a lot of problems in our country with it. I don't have to tell you both that you know. What advice do you have for any parents who might suspect something's going on with the kids? Jennifer, let me go back to you on that point, please.
Well, you know, it becomes very difficult, especially in this situation where your child is 18 years old, like Savannah was. So she's really a grown adult, if you will, legally. But I think all you can do really early on is show show discipline and show extreme love. And those two usually make a combination for keeping children out of this. But I'm one to surveil. I'm one to know exactly what my children were doing. I definitely surveilled them. And I tell you, you know, the joke was, oh my gosh, we're going over to Coffin Daffers. That's the FBI, Mom. Look out. And I can't tell you how many times I had the ear, you know, the cup on the ear up against my son's, and there'd be a girl in there. And I'd like open the door, get out of here. So I think it really takes that close, you know, that close looking out for and knowing what your children are doing.
It does. No, I mean, bravo to you both. You knowing what your kids are doing, that surveillance, and you know, and the way you do it. Like Corey said, I love, you know, dropping some money in the door so that they open it. Dad was here. He's looking at what's going on. It's good for them to know and keep them close. And I love what you said there, Jennifer. You know, striking that balance between, you know, being strict, having rules, and then also showing them love. So sad and heartbreaking for these families. Gotta leave it there. A big thank you to you both for lending us your expertise on this one. Corey Biggies, Jennifer Coffindoffer, thank you both kindly. When we come back after this break, we're gonna look ahead to today's bond hearing for defendant Steve Lawson. So this guy is being accused of being a co-conspirator, helping after the fact in the murder of Crystal Rogers. And he's hoping to get bond. He wants to cooperate. We'll talk about it next.
Tonight on Court TV.
These are the big cases that everyone is talking about.
A lot of new developments taking place.
Shocking.
I know who killed John Bonet.
To say the least.
You cannot make this stuff up.
It's unreal. The scene of the double murders is behind us right here. Things are happening. The investigation is continuing.
Closing arguments with Vinnie Politan. Tonight at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Welcome back to Opening Statements. Now it's time for what is tipping the scales of justice. So we have a bond hearing set to happen later this afternoon for defendant Stephen Lawson. The 53-year-old father is facing conspiracy charges and charges of tampering with physical evidence in connection to the disappearance of Crystal Rogers. She disappeared back in July of 2015, last seen at the farm of her then boyfriend, Brooks Hauk. Let's take a listen together to Lawson at an arraignment hearing just a couple weeks ago.
I'd like to acknowledge the identity of the defendant, Stephen Eugene Lawson, on camera. I will waive formal arraignment, waive formal reading of this indictment, enter a plea of not guilty to indictment number 23 CR 165 count 1 and 23 CR 371 count 1. Move the court to file motions at a time and ask the court to consider reduction in bond at this time, and if not, set a special hearing for a bond reduction hearing.
Okay, so this hearing today is going to be the bond reduction hearing. And to put this all in context, Stephen Lawson has been someone that has indicated to law enforcement long before he was charged that he wanted to cooperate and give any information he had, says that he wasn't involved in Crystal Rogers' murder. But police charged him, and that seemed kind of stunning to him. And so it should be interesting today if there's still going to be an offer to cooperate, and maybe police just don't need his help. Maybe they don't want his help. Maybe they think they can make the case out without it. So who is this guy? We know he's connected to Brooks Houck, Crystal Rogers' then boyfriend. Let's take a look at the moment where Brooks Houck is in the interview room with the police detective, and then there's a call to Stephen Lawson.
Who is Steve Lawson? He's somebody that works for me. What did I tell you?
You told me that you would call, what's her name, Katie or whatever, she handles all that.
Crystal.
Crystal, okay, I apologize.
Yeah.
You said she handles all that?
Oh boy, let's talk about what's ahead for Mr. Lawson here. I want to bring in criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Michael J. Brown. Okay, Michael, is there some hope for this guy in still potentially getting a deal, even though he hoped the charges wouldn't be filed, but we know they've been?
Julie, it's a little strange because apparently, and the lawyer gave this up, that he had met with the federal authorities, the state authorities, the district attorney's office many times. So that means to me that there was a cooperation agreement. He was discussing all of the details of this case, his involvement and the involvement of the other defendants, and it fell apart. Because if it hadn't fallen apart, I don't think you would have seen him standing in a courtroom being charged with the crimes. Now, the next issue is, well, could they then use him down the road? Maybe, but it's unlikely because now he's kind of tainted in the sense that he probably wasn't truthful. All of these notes of the conversations and the meetings would be turned over to the defense attorneys on the other cases. And if he wasn't truthful and honest and forthcoming then, he really becomes very invaluable as a witness during the course of this trial.
Oh, great points, Michael. I am just so puzzled by this. We know that there's a relationship with him and Brooks Houck. So we know there's somewhat of a friendly relationship, or maybe part business, part friendship, whatever it is. And we know Stephen Lawson's son, Joseph Lawson's, also charged her. He was the first charge announced. It was very weird, like this seemed to kind of come out of left field because we know that Brooks Houck was the guy under the microscope for so long as kind of the suspect in the minds of many in the true crime community, but never charged. So here you've got this father and son who are being accused of helping after the fact, with the removal of the car or whatever else police allege might have occurred here. Tell me, Michael, what advice would you give to Stephen Lawson today? Let's say you're his attorney and you're still hoping to maybe get those charges withdrawn or offer some sort of cooperation. What do you do today before the judge at the bond hearing?
Oh, in terms of the bail application, which is what I think you're referring to, Julie, I absolutely would stress a couple of things. Number one is this is a 2015 incident. My client had gone to the authorities. He's lived in the same home. He's been in the community. He's been functioning, working, being productive, and he has not fled. And that's the ultimate issue, at least here in New York, and I think in Kentucky. I don't know if there's a preventive detention component to their bail request, but the main issue is always risk of flight. Is the defendant going to return to court to the fruition of this case? So the answer is, and I always say this to judges, the proof is in the pudding. He's here, he's been around, he hasn't gone anywhere. So the bail should be significantly lower. I couple that argument with the fact that he has cooperated. He has volunteered information. He's been cooperative. So those two things, Judge, I would ask you to reduce the bail, let him be at his liberty, but obviously impose a reasonable bail that would ensure his appearance in court. But the $500,000 bond, that may be too much.
Right, Michael. Great arguments. I would hope his counsel is going to make those arguments that you made for us this morning on opening statements. We'll watch this hearing together when it happens live on Court TV today. Michael J. Brown, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much.